Humiliation is always going to turn to vengeance if it's left untouched for a certain amount of time. And it was interesting because after last week's cliffhanger, we got a tease of what this character looked like, and he very much gave me like a JoJo level character design mixed with like some Joey Wheeler meme faces. Like that's what my impression was. And I know for some anime fans, they hate that type of stuff, and then other people love JoJo level designs like myself. I wasn't expecting, though, there to be a legit reason for why he looked the way he did. It almost looked like he had two different faces. One, this like wannabe pretty boy, to then what the hell am I looking at? And to see how, he was just born disfigured in the eyes of the public, immediately pushed away by family and friends. Imagine growing up looking the way he did. It's no real surprise he doesn't have communication skills and he desires to be pretty. I think I've seen how people respond to this anime outside of my own channel, so I can already imagine what's going to be said. But I think any anime fan who can legit say he's overreacting because he's ugly or he doesn't have the ability to talk with a girl has no idea what human emotions are, because bullying is something that no one wants to deal with, especially because, seriously, you've experienced it either yourself or you've seen it, and if you haven't, you're clearly lying. There's no way around that. To imagine someone looking the way he did in the real world, how he didn't actually kill himself, and the fact that it took as long as it did for him to basically commit it, and then ultimately his angel came to him. There's no way most people would be able to survive that level of humiliation. It's a pretty sad thing, all things considered, and don't get me wrong, I don't like him on a personal level for, what he was doing, but I think watching a character like him, given the type of circumstance, kind of like that second chance, was a really interesting experience, because while I'm fuming that he destroyed the wedding dress and, the dresses that Mikado was making, that's irredeemable in my opinion. I think the overall arc we got to experience was interesting, like the idea of worshipping Metropolitan, someone who's clearly rich and handsome and powerful, he's like this hero, and how it clouded his viewpoint, and to the fact that he doesn't care what happens to the world. His angel saying, should he become God, the world's gonna be destroyed. I don't give a damn. That's what he's saying. But it's interesting because one of the things that kind of caught my eye was when he used his red arrow on the girl that he clearly liked, and he was holding her hand, they started kissing, and what was interesting is that when he looked at himself in the mirror, he realized that she would naturally never do that. And I think there's going to be probably a different level of opinion towards that scene than what I'm about to say, but what's interesting is someone who's as lonely as him didn't take it any further, but rather was like, I want to be able to get people to like me naturally, so he got plastic surgery, which explains the character design. But you can't, get a surgery to fix communication issues. Anime fans can be some of the most socially awkward people out there. I think this very much could be a lot of people watching being like, I have no idea how to talk to people, let alone a girl, and that's just something that humans have to figure out for themselves, but it's no surprise that someone who was born as hideous in the eyes of the public as him would become who we saw in this episode. And I think that's a really interesting concept for the new villain we're experiencing, who I thought was going to be more of a meme character, and while I definitely think a lot of people probably won't appreciate this episode as much as me, I really like what they're able to accomplish. But in terms of what happened with Mikado's family, this dude does need to die. There's no question around it, in my opinion. He's beyond broken, beyond repair. And unfortunately, that's mainly due to a society who's unaccepting to those who are different, especially those who probably need way more compassion than the average Joe. So it will be interesting to see, because if there was ever a chance for Mikado to die, this is probably it. I think he's not a cat. He doesn't have 9 lives. I think, the last time the explosion happened, we had the explosive suit, we had the wings, we got out of that, and we probably should have counted our blessings. I don't see a second time, because the fact that he is working with Metropolitan, the fact that his identity is exposed, it's pretty heartbreaking, because Mikado had all the right intentions of how he was going about securing his family's life, and unfortunately it's kind of just a very high-ranking official in a government or military or a law enforcement, those people can take vengeance against you for things they view you did them wrong, and your family is almost always the first one on the hit list. And that's really tragic for a character who's as impressive as Mikado, who think he would ever call himself a perfect person, but he knows damn well that he wants his family to be safe, and now in hindsight, it looks like dying in that hospital bed would have been the secure thing to do, but who's gonna do any different put in his shoes, right? It's one of those things that I think next week and, maybe a couple weeks after that, if Mikado comes out of that one alive, I don't know what it's going to look like with his family, because on one hand, it almost feels like should he die protecting them, they're not going to look at him any different. But should he, be able to kill this man, I mean, Metropolitan's probably not dying. What's the family going to say? Even if they accept, what went down, they can't live a normal life anymore. Do they run and hide, or what's going to go down? It's honestly, because really, should he die there, I don't think Metropolitan will have any need to necessarily kill them, but at the same time, he doesn't show remorse. Look at the girl who was passing the message along, immediately realizing he can't control her, he shot her dead. And that one friend of his, is just like, holy shit, I made the right decision not confronting him, and he clearly would have suffered the same fate. This is kind of like what I like about Platinum End, is the idea of suicide's a pretty, it's something that so many people unfortunately suffer with. And whether it's because you feel so sick in a hospital bed to feeling ridiculed by society, it's something that, shouldn't be made fun of, by the anime community. And the reasons why characters are so depressed or why they're acting in the way they do, it's all real human behavior. Even if on a visual level, we can look at the character we got introduced to in this episode and say it's so over the top. You can go to Google, you can type in horrible disfigurations that babies and people have been born with and they can't escape, and society makes fun of them. Even if the article in question is nice, the unfortunate thing is that go to Twitter, go to Reddit, and it is not going to be mostly nice things said. And imagining that said to your face over multiple years, it is no surprise why characters can become so socially awkward. Hell, anime fans themselves make fun of how lonely and how socially awkward they are as a coping mechanism, right? And that's kind of what's cool about Platinum End, is that it doesn't feel like it's making fun or making light of things. It's doing it in the most genuine way I think it can do. And it's honestly a very consistent show through and through. I really think Platinum End is doing as much as it can with the tools it has without stepping on its own toes trying to do too much or too little. It's honestly an impressive show. I really think this is one of the most criminally underappreciated shows of this year, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, and that's really great, because even though I had hopes, I was cautious because I heard so many mixed things with the manga, but honestly, I'm loving it. I really, really am. I do want this guy to die for just destroying the wedding dress alone, but I appreciate how real his character arc felt, given the circumstances and disfiguration that he was born with, and honestly, you can get the best plastic surgeon around, it's never going to be perfect, right? I think one of the best parts in terms of the voice acting in this episode, though, was after he got his kind of plastic surgery and, all the women and everyone was just kind of fawning all over him, being like, oh, because he's the hottest shit in town. They were all blushing. But the idea that he was so bad at the stuttering and the almost it was kind of a creepy bastard voice acting is probably the best way I would explain it. And the fact he just couldn't form a sentence. I mean, communication is something that takes a lot of practice, and given the fact that he just went from the most ugly person on the street to the most hot person on the street, the level of dialect is not going to match unless he can somehow get some vocal coaching put in his head, Revel style, which I thought was a cool detail as well. The idea of how angels get their knowledge, which goes to show why the mid-slates, when they give a little information at the midpoint of every episode, why they look like these little balls. Just really cool details all around that really add an extra bell and whistle to an already pretty good show, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below on this week's episode of Platinum End. What do you think is going to go down with Mikaido's revenge next week? Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.